Here I am on the road having some delicious coffee in the state of Montana, coming to you live from the road. I know you like this when the Walter Bosley channel comes to you from the road. It's always interesting, whatever adventure that Malia and I are on. Good coffee. So today, folks, welcome. I am really thrilled to have today's guest on. As you know, this discussion and its tributaries, this across time, this trans-temporal cosmic phenomena discussion is just really red hot on fire here at the Walter Bosley channel, because I have been fortunate enough to bring to you some minds and voices who have, I think, some very substantial things to contribute on this topic. Okay. And today's guest is a legend in the remote viewing world. Now, I know that there's some folks that don't think there's anything to this remote viewing thing. My personal experience has been that I am convinced that there is something to it. Now, I would agree with you that a lot of the popular things out there, discussions, various programs that people who really don't have anywhere near the history or experiences today's guest has had. I know these people are out there and they say RV, they say remote viewing, but what they offer just doesn't deliver. It's not what you would call the real thing. You guys know that I'm a nugget of truth guy, that I don't believe in throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Okay. So this is why we're discussing remote viewing today, and very specifically how it resonates with the trans-temporal cosmic discussion that we have going on here at the Walter Bosley channel. So without further delay, I'm going to bring in, again, one of the legends in the remote viewing world, Lynn Buchanan. Let's see. I am on... there we go. I don't have a mouse here, so I'm having to do the finger mouse thing. There we go. I'm going to bring Lynn in. And there he is, Lynn Buchanan. How are you?
Okay. Thank you for inviting me here. Yeah, I have become convinced that remote viewing works too.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you.
The government, and so has the people that we brought home from missing soldiers and all that. So
exactly. Why don't you, for the benefit of the, I always have newbies coming in and out of here on my channel, and give them a brief resume of Lynn Buchanan's pioneering association with remote viewing.
Well, actually, the remote viewing unit had been in operation 10 years before I got there.
Mm-hmm.
I was brought in to the remote viewing unit, sort of almost by accident. An incident happened over in Germany that I had killed computers, and General Stubblebine, the head of the Intelligence and Security Command, brought me to DC to start a unit that would start, killing enemy computers. And Congress said no, they wouldn't fund it. And so he took me out to the remote viewing unit and put me in there. And they took me over and they read me on, which is a process where they give you a sheet of paper that you read silently. And it tells what the unit really does instead of what they tell the public it does. And I read that and I thought, I'm a candid camera. This is a joke. The military doesn't do this. And over the next, I signed it, and down at the bottom, if you sign this, then you're responsible for keeping it secret.
We're having a little audio
Oh, okay.
trouble there. It was kind of staticky, and then it went a little blank.
Can you
If
hear me?
are you able to come closer to your mic? My tech person asked me. Yeah, that might fix it.
That mic may have gone dead. Is this better?
Oh, this is better. Yeah, that's good. That'll
Okay, I
work.
think that mic went dead.
Okay,
I just got another mic.
there we go. That's perfect.
And so over the next couple of weeks, I watched the people in the unit, and they were doing amazing stuff with this controlled remote viewing. Now, let me tell you, the controlled remote viewing, like you were mentioning, is not anything at all like the remote viewing you hear on the internet.
Right.
Once the scientific nature and background of controlled remote viewing came out, I think every psychic in the country started saying, "Oh, I'm a remote viewer. I'm a crystal ball remote viewer. I'm a palm remote viewer. I'm a tea leaf remote viewer." You know?
Yeah.
And but the controlled remote viewing that the military used is actually more of a martial art than anything else. It's very physical in nature. Part of it is sort of built on the ninja Sake no Jitsu, which is total awareness of everything 360 degrees around you. So what you do in the what they did for me, they started all these exercises to develop awareness and develop the physical response. They would say water, and I would draw a wavy line. They'd say land, and I'd draw a flat line. They'd say space, and I'd draw a circle, and all this. Just thousands and thousands of times until it got to where, and this actually happens. It always amazed me. I would draw the line, and then they would say the word, even though, you know,
Right.
they weren't watching me. But I would draw the line before I heard the word. When that happens, they know that your subconscious mind has become aware of sort of what's coming. And this practice of doing that is nothing more than wax on, wipe off, wax on, you know. And so that is the start of it. Then once they do that, they say, okay, I've got a picture in an envelope. Describe the picture. You have no idea what the picture is.
Right. Yeah. It's blind. You know, it's a blind reading.
You've got your pen on the paper, and your hand goes like this. You say, well, I don't know what the picture is, but there's water and something man-made. You open the envelope, and there's a ship sitting on the ocean.
Yeah.
And your subconscious mind learns to speak to you through your hand.
Right.
And as it goes, it develops and develops and develops to the point where we can actually draw the floor plans of a building where a hostage was being held so that the rescuers could go in and rescue them without getting them killed.
Right.
Even though we had no idea where the building was, what it was, or anything like that, we could draw the floor plans accurately. So
that is really interesting to not, like you say, you don't know where the building is, but you can tell them what's there if they can just find the building. If they can get to the building, the rescuers, you can tell them, you know, where to go from there, right?
And this is the thing, you do it with the subconscious mind totally.
Uh-huh.
And so they don't even tell you you're looking for a building. They say, this is target 670804.
Right.
What's the answer?
Yeah. It's the
And
coordinates. The coordinates are the
the
how you
coordinates, yeah.
zone in, right?
Yeah. And the coordinates don't mean anything.
Right.
They just, that's the project number and that's it.
See, and I think when I'm telling people my very limited so far brief experience, because I've been really, I know I have to go back to it, but my brief experience, which was for a period of about 10 months, I was doing multiple viewings a day. I would tell people, hey, it's coordinates. It's just these random numbers,
Mhm.
and that really serves to. It's kind of astonishing, as you of course would know when you're first doing this and you're getting the results
Mhm.
that you're getting. Uh, but that's the key. I tell people it's the coordinates. They think that, oh, you're given this clue, and they don't understand. It's just a random number.
It's a random number. And in fact, do you want to know the secret of it?
Hmm.
The purpose of the coordinates has two purposes.
Hmm.
One is to make a record of what target you're
Sure.
viewing,
Yeah.
but the real purpose is to get your pen moving so that when you finish that number,
Ah,
you do the ideogram.
yeah. You go right into the ideogram.
Right?
Okay, that's
It gets your
true.
pen moving. That's all it is.
Oh, that's good. That's clever, practical, and there you go. There you go. So you did this for Army intelligence, correct? For how
Army
long?
intelligence for 8.5 years, yeah,
Yeah.
in service, and then I've done it for ooh, almost 30 years now after
Yeah.
service. So,
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why I was really excited to have you on here and talk about this is we have kind of an ongoing discussion from different angles on a particular topic, and that's in the title of this show. The trans-temporal cosmic. Now, we usually talk about trans-temporal cosmic war, but where I thought there's a particular story I remember you telling us when I visited with mutual friends, and I've read about this, I think, in various places and heard other people talk about it. I think Joe McMoneagle talked about it once, but I remember you talking about it specifically, and that was I believe it was when looking at Mars. Um, there was an issue. I believe it was Mars where it was either I believe it was many ages ago.
right.
And tell us a little bit about that. Set that up for us.
Well, Joe had gotten the target of Mars
Hmm.
mainly as a practice session,
Hmm.
and uh, the subconscious mind doesn't have the problems with time the way the conscious mind does.
Hmm.
And it will tend to go to the most interesting point in time, which winds up as a problem to remote viewers when you're doing combat stuff because you want to get specific times. So
Hmm.
you have to queue for it. But he went to the time when there was a civilization there and described it and all. Um, Years later, I got the same task, but they wanted present time. And so I found Mars. Uh, there is a situation in controlled remote viewing where you get so focused on the target that you just sort of go blind to everything around you. And all of
Hmm.
a sudden, all of the input is from your mind from your subconscious,
Hmm.
and you can't tell that you're not at the target. I mean, you can't tell at all.
Okay.
It's like you're there live. And so all of a sudden, I was standing in this place and and uh, moving around, and finally, he moved me to a point where I was in this corridor, and I I never remote view my shoes on. I don't know why. I just don't.
Mhm.
And I could feel the sand under my feet and all that. And there was this opening at the end of the corridor, and I walked out to that opening, and I was looking down. It was really high, and the side of the building was sloped and very rough and all that. And I looked out, and I could see these sort of ancient formations, and uh, the sky was not very bright, and
Mhm.
cold, miserably cold. Anyway, that's what I reported, and I guess about 2 months later, I was out at on the West Coast at a place, and they had a picture which was still classified at the time, um, of the face on Mars.
Hmm.
And um, you know, they can read your license plate from 250 miles up, right?
Oh,
And
yes.
all you get is a blurry picture of the face on Mars. And if you look, the crystal clear pictures of the face on Mars, it will say computer generated from that blurry picture.
Yeah.
It's, well, the picture that they had was very clear. And
Hmm.
I looked, and one of those pyramidal shapes, there's a little opening right there up on the side of it. And I mentally placed myself there and looked out around that picture.
Hmm.
And that was exactly what I saw. Everything was in the right place. So, you know, physically, uh, I've never been off the planet out here. And
Right.
yet mentally, everything in me says, Mars, yeah, been there, done that.
Right.
um, and
Yeah.
you can get that accurate with it. Yeah.
Now, the time aspect of it.
Hmm.
Was it Joe that saw way back in the past
Yes.
first?
Yeah.
And was that the first time that that viewers had seen across time, or was
Oh
that, or
no.
is the time aspect very common?
Oh, time aspect is very common. In fact,
Yeah.
it's so common that when you first start teaching somebody the controlled remote viewing,
Yeah.
they're working blind to the target,
Hmm.
and then you show them the target afterwards.
Right.
We have found that they're not viewing the target. They're viewing their feedback like 10 or 15 minutes in the future.
Well.
And so then we have to break them of doing that because we don't want them viewing their feedback. We want them
Right.
viewing the target.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so more training, more training, more training. The training for controlled remote viewing, uh, to train you well, to do it well, uh, plan on a year, maybe two.
Yeah.
When I got there, the training period was about a year and a half.
Hmm.
I finished it in about 7 months,
Hmm.
and that was one of the fastest they had had. Uh, we sort of attributed that to the hundredth monkey theory. You know, where the more people learn something, the faster it is to learn it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And when I left the unit, people were people were coming in. working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week on it, not just as a hobby
Right. Yeah. It was their
when you get
duty
home. Yeah,
assignment,
it was
correct?
their duty assignment. And they were learning it in 3.5 to 4 months, becoming
Wow.
extremely proficient at it. Yeah.
Wow. Now, um, among the data that you collect in RV, um, what about the scientific data? More than just okay, you can see a place, you can see a time, but would you ever get any kind of, or do you ever get any kind of scientific type data?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's not hard at all. Uh, it's just it's just viewing something scientific rather than a location or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Um,
Have you any experience with or knowledge of, say, for instance, we have discussed in the past on my show the idea of plasma physics and how 99% of physics. And I'm getting this wrong. I have to go back and watch my own show. But have you ever gotten anything personally or aware of any data that would seem to corroborate the idea of the nature of space itself? Is there something more material there, like they used to call the ether, but now perhaps we would better understand as plasma physics? Have you ever gotten anything like that?
oh, well, sort of. Not not that nature of it, but there was a place in El Paso that was working on this invention
Mm-hmm.
that depends on a plasma field, and
Mm.
their plasma field was not stable,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be stable for a few seconds and then go unstable, and so they were trying to figure out how to make it stable. So they
Mm-hmm.
called me in and they said, "Can you find out why it's going becoming unstable?" And I did the session, gave them the answer. They fixed it, and now they have a stable field. Uh, so they're continuing, and the invention that they're doing is still in further development. So really can't talk about it, but
It's proprietary to them.
it's proprietary. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I find that I find it really interesting. In discussions that we've had before, and this is where I think maybe it would be interesting to a remote viewer. We've discussed the hypothesis of certain time events, or better stated, events in time may be captured either in crystals or plasma bubbles or balls
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
examples, and I'm wondering if how that might relate to remote viewing. If you're reviewing something, would you be able possibly to tap into one of these you know events in time encapsulated in plasma or in a crystal?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. One of the things I got during the military, one of the assignments, the Russians had developed a particle beam weapon,
Hmm.
and they, our customer at the time, wanted to know what was going on inside the beam. And of course, you can't put an instrument inside the beam because it,
Right.
you know,
Burns up.
totally within fraction of a second.
Mhm.
And so somebody had the genius idea of, well, let's stick a remote viewer in the middle of the beam and see what happens.
Ah.
And I got that duty, and inside that beam, the beam itself screws up time as well as everything else, you know.
Ah.
But I was able to move through time to my own past and my own future inside that beam, and mentally, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Um, and it was an experience. It was an experience I'll never forget. The beam itself, what
Hmm.
was happening inside the beam was the task, and what was happening inside the beam was just one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen in my life. But
Really.
that while I was in there, I realized the time aspect, that time was totally warped, and that you could just move around to any place you want to in time within that beam. It was fantastic.
That's what was. Can you describe? You said it's the most beautiful thing. Can you describe what it was, or?
I can't. It was beautiful colors that I
Uh huh.
perceived, and I'm sure the beam was not this way. This was my perception of it.
Sure.
Uh, just beautiful colors in a swirling, to me, counterclockwise pattern coming from it, and uh, the the beauty of it is hard to describe. It was just fantastically beautiful, the rich colors and you
Yeah, I know what you mean. I had in 2010, I had experienced a little bit of an overdose of guarana seed extract that was
know,
in
okay,
a beverage that I had been frequenting, and I was hit with vertigo after about 2 weeks of ingesting this, unaware that I was doing this to myself. And during that time, I had very incredibly vivid dreams. And during one of those dreams, I saw what looked like a nebula of color, but I heard a sound, a musical tone. There wasn't any melody to it, but Lynn, it was singularly the most beautiful thing, wonderful, amazing
yeah,
sound I've ever heard, awake or asleep. And I would give almost anything just to hear that sound again.
yeah,
I don't want to overdose on guarana seed because I had vertigo for 4 days. But I know what you mean. I can't describe the sound. Just like, like you
yeah.
say, you can't really describe what it is. It has to be experienced, you
It
know.
does. One time, it was a practice target, and I got this beautiful chord of sound, and
Okay.
uh, and it was so overwhelming to me. The beauty of the sound of it. It was
Yes.
basically three notes in a perfect chord,
Right.
and come to find out, the target was a lemon, and what I was getting was the chord of the seed, the rind, and the pulp together, just the perfect match within a lemon. And so this is called synesthesia, by the way.
Okay.
Synesthesia is where you get an impression and it goes to the wrong sense. So
Okay.
you may many people with synesthesia will see each number as a different color, and so on.
Hmm.
And and this is a scientifically known thing, and it happens sometimes with remote viewing. Uh, but in a very real way, I heard a lemon. How do
Well,
you
think about it.
explain? How do you explain that to anybody?
Well, think about it. What you experienced, perhaps too, was just that perfect resonance of whatever elements go into
That's right. Yeah,
that lemon being what it is,
that's right.
and it's
Yeah,
just the workings of nature,
yeah,
on that level. And wow, that's really synesthesia. What's so interesting is I was just reading something in the last 2 days that refers to that, and I'm going to go back to it now and pay closer attention to that because I like that. That there is a name and an explanation that you can put to something, because it doesn't take away the experience for me.
No, it
It
doesn't.
it makes it more interesting to me that, oh, okay, so this is a thing. This wasn't just me having a wacky dream.
Oh yeah.
This is a thing, and it's something I can look, at more data at. When
The, the
mhm.
experience you had, I was out here in the desert one time. There's
Mhm.
turquoise all over out here. You just go out and
Yeah,
pick it up.
right.
And um, I never take water to the desert with me because, I just don't. And so I had gotten overly thirsty. And so I just, there's this little button of cactus, not a
Hmm.
fully grown. And so I just got it, squeezed the juice out of it, which is slimy. But, and that satisfied my thirst. Started getting sick. Oh,
Oh,
sick as
wow.
I could be. And then all of a sudden, I looked over and you could see and hear the colors of the wind blowing across the desert. And I didn't know I had gotten peyote.
Oh, that's a hell of a way to find out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. So what has been your most significant, impactful experience with remote viewing and time phenomena? Is it that what you described about being inside the laser and being able to see your life spectrum, or is there some other one
That
that's just?
that probably is the weirdest. The thing is, in the controlled remote viewing,
Mhm.
uh, structurally and mentally, once you get your sea legs in time to where your subconscious isn't attracted here and there and everywhere
Mhm.
else, um, once you get to that level of experience of efficiency, there is no difference in controlled remote viewing between move 10 feet forward and move 10 years forward. Uh, it's a command. Your subconscious mind does it. And, or move 10 minutes forward, stay at the same place, move 10 minutes forward, or just move 10 feet forward. Same thing.
Yeah.
And your subconscious says, okay, and describes what's there.
Have you ever viewed either a well-known historical event or person?
Oh, yeah. Over and over and over. Yeah.
Any
uh,
particular stories you could share with us?
well, I constantly got, every remote viewer has their strengths and their weaknesses.
Hmm.
And I was constantly getting updates, getting the task to give updates on Saddam Hussein's plans and intentions for the next day of battle.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, I was just constantly remote viewing him,
Hmm.
getting into his mind and finding out what he had planned. Yeah.
That's interesting. And I imagine you got some interesting peripheral data too, or was it so focused on
No, I
the
got
task?
a lot of peripheral. The man was stark raving crazy. He really was. I mean, he was flipped out crazy. Yeah.
He believed he was the reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar, right?
Yes, and he believed that God wanted him to rule mankind.
Of course.
And
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. Now, another question that comes to mind, considering these things we just said about his belief that he was, you know, Nebuchadnezzar, he had a reputation. I first heard about this actually during the first Gulf War. I was with the FBI. I was in Manhattan, and I remember another agent was telling me about Saddam Hussein's fascination with ancient relics and sites and things. Um, Did you ever pick up anything like that was of interest archaeologically?
Just his interest in it, and he also had this desire to protect, and not only to protect but also to purify. You know, when they I forget exactly where it was, where the statues that were built into the mountain, they destroyed all of those.
Oh, yeah, the Banyan. I think I'm
Yeah.
getting the name right. Yeah. The
Um,
Buddhas, the giant Buddhas.
yeah. He was he was all for that.
The
Which
destruction
surprised
of it.
the destruction of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, there came a time when he evidently had a missile aimed at Mecca, and during the Feast of Ramadan, he was going to lob that missile in, kill the other uh, Muslim leaders, leaving
Hmm.
him as the leader of the Muslim world,
Wow.
at which time uh, he would just number one target, U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
What I wonder what stopped him from doing that.
we found the missile.
Oh, that would do it.
Yeah.
That definitely would. When I was in Iraq, I one day we had some downtime in Nasiriyah, and that was the day Walter made the connection. We're driving down along the highway, and there's a ziggurat, and one of my best friends on that job, my team leader, I said, "Hey, look at that pyramid," and he goes, "That's the ziggurat of Ur." And that's
Oh,
right out there beyond. And that's when I did the math, dummy
yeah.
me. Nasiriyah is the modern
Yeah.
site of ancient Ur. So we got to go over there, and I got pictures of us climbing on the top and standing on top of the reconstructed ziggurat of Ur, which was one of the things that Saddam was, I guess, obsessed with, was rebuilding. Also, he wanted to rebuild the so-called Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
That was one of the rumors, and so yeah, I imagine you guys were getting all sorts of interesting stuff, some of which probably remains classified to this day, even though it's 30 years later.
Yeah. You know, the word
Hmm.
the definition of it is the beginning.
Oh,
So even in German, means, Uralt means old as the beginning itself. Yeah.
so yeah, they believed it was the first known city, then I guess, right?
Yeah. Mhm. I have a dog.
I have a few at home. I'm not at home now, but yeah, I know how that is. In in your I kind of lost my question there for a second where I was going. in
But
Let's jump over to the astronomical. What is the farthest place you've ever remote viewed?
hey, there was a reason the dog was barking.
Oh,
Yeah. Thank you. Um, oh, the farthest I think was one of Titan, the moon of Saturn.
yeah, I think Saturn or Jupiter, but
Jupiter.
yeah.
I don't know, but anyway, it was Titan, and
Hmm.
also many times viewing Mars.
Hmm.
Uh, but those were the ones that distance-wise. Now, along the same line, I got a target one time of it's a blind target,
Hmm.
and what I found was a desert of sand with a scoop sticking out of it. just this scoop sticking up like that. Chewy, stop. No. And it was 12 years later that I got a thing in the mail, said, "Here's your feedback." And it was a picture taken by the Mars rover of a place with, just sand.
Mhm.
And there is a scoop sticking out of the sand.
I'll tell you, I'm one of those that, and I don't know if we discussed this when for those who don't know, I first met Lynn a few years back through a mutual friend, and I've had the pleasure and honor of being able to visit Lynn's home a couple of times and spend a few hours talking with him each time. And I'm one of those that thinks, and I might have mentioned this to you before, that thinks there is a form of coy, indirect, I hate to use the D word, but disclosure going on where Mars is concerned. I think they are showing us, the destroyed relics of the past on Mars and just not addressing it so that then down the road they can say, well, it was in the pictures we were releasing the whole time.
Yeah.
Does that sound reasonable?
Oh, yeah. And it is in the pictures. If you look, you can see them. Yeah.
Sure. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with, do you know John Brandenburg?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you've met John, because I think one of the visits that I went to your place, John was with us. John has that real interesting little discovery he made that other physicists he worked with, told him that they think he's right. And that is the evidence of an artificially induced nuclear explosion on Mars several thousand years ago. Now, did you guys ever, as remote viewers, did you ever in the past or in the 30 years you've been doing it since leaving the Army, have you ever looked at that?
We haven't looked at that. We have looked at the weather changes there that basically wiped out the civilization that was there. Yeah.
How long ago was that, would you say?
This is millennia ago.
Wow. Okay.
We can see across millennia of time as remote viewers, as well as we can look across the room. No problem.
Right. What about what are your thoughts on, for instance, the Vedic view of history? Talking about human civilization, hundreds of thousands of years back and more. It sounds like that seems pretty accurate to your experience as a remote viewer, or not?
Yeah, I don't know the Vedic history. I'm not up on that, but we found civilizations way before history or anything, and they were there. Yeah,
I think you'd find it very interesting. I'll send you some links to some things you might find very interesting in that vein, because I think that really interests you, because in the West, we have a habit of being Western centric in the way we think, and choose to disregard the rest of the world in certain things. And certainly this, I think human history.
I've noticed that.
Right. Human history is one of those things. But that's a whole discussion on the political, socio-political nature of academia in the West.
That's right.
Truth be damned, we have our, reputations and professional issues to be concerned with. But what about the? Let's jump a little closer. The moon. What have you seen through remote viewing about the moon that you found most interesting?
The activity that's going on there,
Hmm.
the industry that's going on there, both human and ET.
Hmm.
Uh, Also, one of the first civilian uh, contracts that I got was a moon exploration company
Hmm.
that wanted to know how to build a temporary shelter on the moon that would house the people who are going up to build a permanent shelter.
Sure.
And so we did that. And what we found was that if you stretch a membrane over a small crater, seal it, you can fill it with 16 pounds of air, air pressure.
Hmm.
And that's what you have at sea level. It's half of what you put in a bicycle tire.
Hmm.
And that the only dangers to those are the radiation coming in, but there are ways to block that radiation
Hmm.
and uh, small meteorites, you know, punching holes. But because it is a membrane, not a glass dome,
Hmm.
it's not going to shatter. It's just going to make a hole.
Okay.
So you take roll after roll of duct tape, you know, cover the hole,
Hmm.
and so this is the thing we returned, and there is actual evidence. I've seen the picture that it's built and it's up there. Just a membrane stretched over one of the small craters,
Huh.
and it gives temporary housing. You know,
That's interesting, and I would imagine that the outer surface of a membrane could be camouflaged with really a photographic image of what that crater looked like before it was covered, so that anybody looking from a distance would just appear to see, the same old thing. They wouldn't, I guess, from a telescope or whatever, see that, oh, hey, there's something actually over that, if
what
they chose to.
what we gave back as the result was um, coating of material, and the picture I saw was a small crater with this silver bubble over it. Yeah,
Silver, yeah, okay, wow, that's, yeah, because I
if
find the
it's so small, you're not really going to see it
sure,
unless you're
yeah, that's
really high
true. If it's small
concentration.
enough, it's not going to stand
Yeah.
out that much. Because I find it interesting that, of course, we're seeing relics, apparent relics on the Martian surface in the images that were sent
Oh
back. And
yeah.
of course, for years, people have pointed that out about the moon. And what do you think about? Have you ever remote viewed this idea of the moon being hollow, first of all, and it having been used as, just a large transport, coming to Earth? Are
I
you familiar with that?
I have not gotten that as a task. Um, I find it very hard to believe,
Okay.
actually, that it's hollow. However, tunnels, uh,
Right.
oh yeah, dug into it and all that for mining and things like that. Sure.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
but yeah, the thing is, let's go away from remote viewing and go to science. Okay.
Sure. Sure.
When we go out to other places, where are we going to establish our bases?
Hmm.
On the moons,
Sure.
not on the planets.
Makes sense.
Because you go to a planet and you try to lift off a load of ore that's big enough, you can't do it.
True. Good
However,
point.
you can get small ships that will carry ore out to the moon to a big ship that can easily lift off the moon and come back. And so we're going to inhabit the moons, not the planets.
That makes sense. That's very practical, I think. I'm
Which is
sure.
basically what they're doing here,
Yeah, essentially. Which I think I'm one of those that thinks that my personal opinion, and this is just my speculative opinion, having been in the military, for the period I was in, was long enough to learn certain things, as you, I'm sure, are very familiar with. And I spent time in program protection and understanding how things work in that world, and understanding, from the Air Force, the history, and from seeing it on active duty. Whenever they're doing flight tests, whenever they're testing anything, it's my personal opinion that you get all these people that say we never went to the moon. I completely oppose that ridiculous idea, but
Yeah.
I will take it to the step that I think we did a manned landing, secretly classified mission before Apollo 11 to make sure that it could work before doing the dog and pony show at the height of a Cold War in front of the world. That's just my feeling on that, and it's a whole discussion, and I have a bunch of reasons that I think corroborate that. But basically, that's my thinking: is we would have tried it, and then that gets into, well, if we would have done that, how many times have we actually been going there after Apollo 17? On a classified level.
Well,
I don't know what you think about that idea, but that's.
well, I have an Apollo 20 patch.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. And, there's rumors that for a couple of decades now, we have already had people on Mars. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but the rumors are there, and there's some indicators to back it up.
Yeah, I've said it publicly. I would agree with that. I tell people all the time that I think we, at the very least, just based on my limited awareness and knowledge, at the very least, I think we've put boots on Mars at least once. I've been sure that we tried it, and like you were saying, you would have reason to believe that that we've done it more than once. Why not? So I would imagine that there would be an interesting aspect of mission support that RVers could provide. Say one of these, let's say it's a classified mission, obviously, because we, the public, don't know about it. But I would imagine there would be an excellent mission support function for RVers with a manned space flight and landing like that.
Absolutely. Yes. And, you wouldn't hear, excuse me, you wouldn't hear about it, of course.
Right.
But at the same time, out in the civilian world now that the controlled remote viewing has come out in the civilian world, we work with non-disclosure agreements. So the public still never hears about it.
Right.
And in fact, when you're working for a corporation on a project that they're going to spend $20 million for, the security on that is higher than we ever had in the military.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. People don't realize too that, I said it just, I think, in the last episode, this, even though with the US government, once something's classified, we're not like the UK. We don't have a 50-year rule. People don't realize that. There's some Americans that think, after 50 years. No. In the United States, once something's classified, it can stay classified forever until a classification authority declassifies it. Yeah. However, even that said, the government still can be subject to FOIA. Well, private corporations are not. This stuff is proprietary information, and they are not obligated to share that with the public ever,
That's right.
unless
Yep.
it has proven to endanger the public in some way. Then that's a different process. So that's where I tell people to go look for the answers to the secrets. But hey, if you're up to it, if you're ready, I think it's time to jump over to the live chat and let them ask a few
Okay.
questions. And
Yeah. All right.
folks, remember to please put your questions in all caps if you want me to ask it, if you want it to be asked, and your comments in all caps if you want them to be recognized. Otherwise, I think you're talking to each other. So here's an interesting question. Lynn from VKK, have you ever RV'd the human soul or any such thing in God's creation?
I have personally. Not so well. In addition to it, before I went into the military unit, General Stubblebine sent me to the Monroe Institute, and this deals with past life regression quite strongly. And it was in that experience that I realized for the first time that that I did have past lives. I was raised a good little Baptist kid. I never believed anything like that,
Yeah.
And also in the military, they found that I was avoiding the point of death on any target I had, any target person, and so I got a whole series of targets blind where it was a person, and then they would move me forward in time to that person beyond their death. And what I found in that whole series was that the Baptists were right. You either go to heaven or you go to hell. The atheists were also right. You can just disappear, and no longer exist. And the reincarnationists are also right. You can come back. And that where all of those are wrong is believing that they're the only ones that are right. and uh, and so that these possibilities are there.
Oh, wow.
And
It sounds like it's what you make it, right? It's what you choose.
well, that I followed up on a lot of these, and according to my little Baptist learning,
Mhm.
the lives of the people that I had been tasked with
Mhm.
didn't seem to follow along that rule. Um, I never found anything in their recorded history lives that would indicate any reason why you go one way or the other or anything like that. So I still don't know the answer to that one.
Hmm. Anything interesting do you think that you came away with regarding the nature of what we would call the soul?
I think the nature of the soul, yeah, is that it is basically a a a unification. This is really lame. Okay, a unification of what you are, and that the mind and the soul are different from the brain. Okay, and
Yeah.
so one of the explanations I have for ghosts, why they keep repeating the same thing over and over, is
Hmm.
their soul is wanting something, but they don't have a brain to know that they're dead and that they've already done it.
Oh,
And so it just keeps repeating forever and ever and ever, And
interesting.
so, but what you are is different from what you think and what you feel, and
Okay.
it's that basic gestalt of what you are lives on, and
Okay.
may come back into another body, may not. I don't know.
Okay. I think, what is it called? Non-locality theory, I think, is in there
Yeah, yeah.
in what you're talking about. Okay. Yeah. We've been talking about that here with, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joseph Farrell, but,
Oh, yeah,
had
yeah.
some, in fact, I should have you two on together. That would be one hell of a conversation right
I
there. So,
you talk about a genius. I was so impressed with that man's mind. It's fantastic.
well, we got to have you two on together. I think that would be something. Our next question is from Renee, Mrs. Johnny Lynn, regarding, I guess she's asking regarding helping the police.
Yeah.
Um, the how much detail? I guess she's asking how much detail do you get? Do you give? But just generally, what's been your experience in helping the
When
police with
when we
RV?
worked for the police,
Hmm.
one of the first ones we did, I was working with a detective, and they're good at getting information, but they're lousy at giving it. And so he was wanting all this stuff, and I said, "Well, wait a minute. What is it you really, really want?"
Uh huh.
And he'd say, "Well, I want this," and I say, "Well, you can figure that out from this other question you're asking.
Yeah.
What do you want us to focus on more than anything else?" And I said, "What do you really want most?" He said, "Well, what I want most is a witness, and there aren't any." And I said, "Fine, I can assign one." And all of a sudden he said, "Oh, that's what you've been telling me all along." And we started the assigned witness program where we would finally find out what the police needed, the unknown.
Hmm.
And we would go fill in that unknown with the information they needed that would
Hmm.
help them solve the rest of the case. And so
Oh,
people ask us, how many kids did you bring home? None. The information we provided let the police bring home a lot of kids so far.
good. Great.
How many crimes? The information we provided filled in the blanks, and they solved the crimes.
Yeah.
And so, you hear, "Oh, I solved the crime," and all this. Uh, no, you didn't.
Yeah. They're being a little misleading there, you might
A
say.
little, yeah. Uh,
Uh, Next question from D. Dorothy Papineau. Lynn, can you recommend reading material aside from Russell Targ? I guess she's read all of his stuff. So any other
yeah.
material?
Listen, Russ is a squeaky clean scientist. I mean, pure, pure science. No, no bias of any kind. He is a purest scientist I've ever met. Highly respect him. Joe McMoneagle has some books. There's a really neat book out by a guy named Lynn Buchanan uh, called The Seventh Sense. Um, and it's just about my time in the military, but also in the appendices, it gives you the exercises that we do to help you become a good remote viewer. It doesn't teach you to remote view, it gives you the exercise that will develop that awareness of everything around
Okay. I think we're having more trouble with the microphone again. It's dropping out.
you.
Maybe the charge is.
I should have charged the other one up. Uh, Okay, can you hear me at all?
Oh, yes, yes, that's good. That's good. That's
Okay.
good. So we have a question from Philip Blair. Can a remote viewer plausibly influence the behavior of a foreign adversary or any target for that matter?
Okay. Remote viewing is a passive thing. You
There you go.
view, you get information. Remote influencing is
Mm,
the active part of it. Now, in the military, we had an absolute strict rule with punishment if we got caught doing any active mental work. I mean, absolutely no active mental work. Uh, did we do active mental work? Yeah. We were never officially, you know, assigned to do it, but
yeah.
twice I know I was outside of the unit. I was approached by what you could say was Men in Black, the
Okay.
equivalent of Men in Black.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Yeah.
that said, we have special tasking for you,
Hmm.
and so yeah, you can influence the behavior of a foreign adversary, but you do it at the subconscious level,
Hmm.
at their subconscious level.
Ah. So it may or may not work or work only to a certain degree, if at
It
all.
works. It works pretty well.
Oh.
It works very well, in fact. But
That's interesting.
can you make them uh, think peanut butter? No, you can't make them think the words peanut butter. You can, however, go to their subconscious mind and make them want something and finally realize that what they're wanting is peanut butter.
Okay.
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 But it should be called remote persuasion, not remote influencing. And in
Hmm.
fact, it is influencing. It's not control, not remote
Right.
control. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah, that would. So Wendy Ader asks, do you have any comments from an RV perspective regarding the Mandela effect?
Remind me the Mandela effect.
That's the thing where people remember historical events differently. Like
Oh
you and
yeah. Oh
I might
yeah.
remember one famous person dying in a certain time. You remember
Oh yeah.
them, not.
Yeah. Who is it that apes in the mist? Um,
Oh, Gorillas in the Mist. Oh my gosh.
yeah, gorillas. And anyway,
Yes.
I absolutely remember hearing on the news and reading in the newspaper that she had died.
Uh huh.
She's still alive, and yet
Oh,
there was a time in history, in my past, where it was big news that she had died.
yeah. That she had been. That I wait a minute. I remember that she had been attacked by um, the warlord soldiers, right? Or the
Mhm.
not terrorists, but
Yeah, and yet now it didn't happen.
and I remember it was brutal. What I remember was
Yeah,
the attack was with machetes.
yeah, yeah. And
And,
so
hmm,
and so you talk to people and they remember it, and yet here she is today, healthy and alive, and doing fine. It never happened.
okay, there. That's pretty wild.
Yeah,
Joseph Farrell, we've talked about the Mandela effect because that fascinates him, and he
yeah,
thinks it's. I'm sure you've heard his thoughts on it, what they've been messing around with, and the CERN and the collider is just a small part of
oh
the
yeah,
idea, but he gets into the idea of the plasma time events, captured in plasma bubbles, so to speak, or crystallized, of course.
yeah.
Okay, so we
Well,
have.
I've always taken the attitude of my memory is so good that I can even remember things that never happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Leslie Payton asks, have you ever remote viewed famous cases like JFK's death or Marilyn Monroe, etc.?
Sure, we've done those as practice targets, yeah. And we found stuff that does not match the publicized, and yet one of the very important things about the practice targets is you have to have feedback before you can get the data on it. And many of the things we found, there will never be feedback on.
Of course not.
For many reasons, yeah.
What's your personal, as a result of that, what is, if you're willing to share it, if you want to, what's your personal opinion about, in a nutshell, the JFK assassination, for example?
Yeah, it was, there was government involvement, yes.
Interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, it was,
when questions...
not only government involved caused it, but also planned.
Oh, the microphone, interestingly, is fuzzing out, just as you were saying what you were saying.
I wonder why.
No, isn't that? Yeah, right? Those men in black.
Yeah, but afterwards also, the saying is never let a good disaster go to waste.
Right.
So there were activated plans for after that had happened as well. Those plans were made beforehand for after that had happened. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I think people have been figuring out, that, the idea of JFK's assassination essentially being a coup, that of course puts some, I've been looking at that. I'm going to be visiting that a little bit in my upcoming book, but yeah, very, very interesting to say. When you talk about that, let people ask about the events, a whole list of things to RV pops up, right? So Philip Blair again asks, what, to your knowledge, or if you've done it yourself, has been remote viewed, say, underneath the Sphinx at Giza? Have you RV
I have never been tasked with that, but I know that other viewers have, and they find out that there is a room under there that is filled with artifacts, and that many of those artifacts would probably change the historical record if they were revealed, which is why they won't be revealed.
Yeah, funny that, right? That there we go again with historians. God forbid they should have to rewrite their own book, right? Here's a good request. D. Dorothy Papineau wants, if you could give the title of your book again, and go ahead and tell us where they can get it.
Okay, it's The Seventh Sense, and you can get it on Amazon. It's published by Lulu Press. So you can get it at lulu.com as well. And it's called The Seventh Sense because we have found in this Sake no Jutsu thing that you have your five senses, but you also have a sixth sense, which is not psychic. It is the ambiance of the world around you. Somebody walks into the room angry, and the entire room feels angry or something like that, and that ambiance of the world around you is not only what you feel, you can also control the ambiance in a room, and by doing it, you can control everybody in the room. And it's not psychic. Now, if you can do the same for a room that's halfway around the world 100 years ago, that's psychic. That's your seventh sense.
On that, the thing that's coming to my mind is the idea that somebody somewhere has certainly violated, I guess you'd say, the ethic you guys were held to. And I wonder if a Mandela effect kind of thing, or could result in, I guess what I'm trying to say is somebody out there, in my opinion, I wonder if they've attempted this remote persuasion on historical figures of the past to change the course of history to better control our own times.
Oh, we wouldn't do that.
uh,
Of course, yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have developed a way to influence your own past. Now, we have yet to figure out how to change your own past, but we have found out how to influence your own past, and it works extremely well. You can keep data on it. It works.
I like that. I might be talking with you at length again in the near future, because this has opened up all sorts of questions that
Oh yeah.
absolutely. Wow. VKK asks, have you ever remote viewed the day the Declaration of
I've
Independence
never
was
been
signed?
tasked with that. Never had it as a practice session. No.
Okay, here we have Leslie Payton. Comment. Ingo Swan remote viewed alien bases on the moon. Have you remote viewed there? Earlier we were talking about what you
Many
have remote viewed.
many times. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're there. Uh, there are also humans working in the alien bases, and there are also human bases on the moon. So yeah.
Yeah, I that for me, I don't find that surprising or shocking. It's just, my gosh, it's so close, relatively speaking. That why not? Oh, here we go. Leslie Payton says it's Diane Fossey. She was the Gorillas in the Mist. Um,
No, that's not the one I was thinking of. Um,
oh, are you thinking of? Then I think you're thinking of Jane Goodall.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, because Diane Fossey was the one who was murdered by
okay.
the oh, I forget what they referred to them as. It was in Africa. It was with machetes, and yeah,
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
brutally brutal. But yeah, Jane Goodall, you're right, is alive. Maybe in some alternate historical timeline, Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall, were the same person, and that's what we're
Could be. I don't know.
tapping
Yeah.
into. Poachers. Yes, Brian Evans says it was Poachers, and now I recall it was Poachers
Mm,
that Diane Fossey, played by Sigourney Weaver in the film
mm.
Gorillas in the Mist. Let me see. That's good. Remember, folks, all caps if you want it to be acknowledged or asked. Okay. And I'm wading through the. Oh, okay. Here's one. I think we kind of went here earlier, but maybe not this specifically, or we could flesh out some more. Philip Blair asks, have remote viewers ever helped archaeologists or anthropologists find a site of interest?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Um, Many of the things we've gotten in the civilian world. Can you hear me now? I'm using the
Yes.
other microphone. I
Oh, yeah,
tried.
yeah, yeah. This is good.
Um, um, Many of the things we've gotten, archaeologists especially uh, want to know, you know, make an X that says dig here. And anthropologists, yeah, we did a practice session um, in the training, intermediate training class about
Mhm.
the Denisovians, and found some information on artifacts. Uh, I mean, they were task blind with it. They had no idea what they were even even looking at animate beings, and found information on their artifacts, and those artifacts were found. And
Interesting.
so, yeah.
Okay. VKK asks, what are your thoughts on the nature of this universe and our reality?
I'm for it. I'm definitely for it.
It
Uh,
exists.
um, yeah, it exists, and that's the thing. They say, "Oh, it exists only in your mind, and your mind is," that's not true. It exists. Your mind perceives it, but that doesn't mean your mind creates it.
Good.
Uh,
I like that.
and the thing they say, "Oh, every time you make a decision, it creates a new future, a new universe." I don't think I have ever made a decision that was so important that it created galaxies and, a new set of
Excellent.
galaxies and millions of people and,
Right.
um, I just I think that's fairy tale thinking.
Hmm. Let's see what we got here next. LDHB's asked, this is kind of an offshoot of what we've already talked about with remote influencing and persuasion. Is it possible for remote viewers to create evil events or cause harm to others? I think you kind of covered that earlier.
Well, this was also asked at the as the last question at my talk at the International Remote Viewers Association this last week. Um, the answer is yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The answer is yes. The remote viewing and the remote influencing are just like they say about guns.
Hmm.
A gun is neither good nor evil, it's the person using it. And if you have these abilities to um, help people, they can be used to hurt people. Yes.
Yeah.
I find it very despicable. And usually the people who do that find that, well, anytime you do anything with other people, you find that what goes around does come around. You help other people,
Hmm.
you wind up helping yourself. You hurt other people, you wind up hurting yourself. If you're part of the collective consciousness and you hurt somebody else in the collective consciousness, it's collective. You're
Yeah.
going to hurt yourself.
Funny thing, karma.
Yeah.
So we're going to do two more questions. Number one is, what more can you tell us about what what you've through RV and such, about the aliens who were or are on the moon and or were or are on Mars?
Well, uh, they're friendly and unfriendly. Okay. Um,
Hmm.
After service, I was tasked, I won't say the agency, I was tasked to write a paper about contrasting and comparing their psychic ability with our psychic ability. And I think, there's not us and them. There's us and them 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 and them.
Exactly.
Okay. And it wound up in this study. I got access to uh, many of the reports that are not available to the public ever, probably never will be,
Hmm.
of actual events, abductions, and things like this. And what I came up with in studying all of these is that you can divide them into four categories psychic wise.
Okay.
And you can divide them into our enemies and our friends. Okay.
Hmm.
It's two categories. In each category, you can divide them into those who are more psychic than we are and those who are equal or less than we are.
Hmm.
And the enemy ones who are less psychic than we are tend not to come here. They don't like us. Okay. The ones that are less psychic than we are and friendly come here for mining ore, for mining materials, for other reasons, for trade mainly.
Mhm.
The ones who are more psychic than we are and friendly are seriously interested in us developing our psychic ability. Uh, they desirous of that. The enemy who are more psychic than we are, basically want us wiped off the planet. They don't want us out in space. They would be very happy to just burn this place to the ground. And I really couldn't figure out why on that. And this one abduction incident uh, that I got the report of, there were some guys camping by a lake, and they saw this UFO off in the distance, and they were standing there looking at it, and the thing approached, got right over them, and froze them and abducted them. And it dawned on me, they have much stronger psychic ability than we have. But they don't have any range. They got to be right over you.
Okay.
We
Okay.
can see across time and space as well as we can see across the room. When we get out into space with the psychic ability that we have and can develop, we will be a major power in the universe.
And that's
that's
what
why
bothers. Yeah.
that's why the enemies don't want us out there, and
Yeah.
our friends want us out there because they're they want that ability. Yeah.
We're a force multiplier.
Yeah.
Against the belligerent ones and the malevolent forces. And I'm glad you went there, because it's one of my things that I talk about. In the particularly in the ufology community and such. There is this foolhardy belief that the idea of any kind of threat out in space is a big lie by the deep state. And I'm constantly telling my audience, and others, that, folks, that's not logical. If you're saying you believe in these intelligent, advanced civilizations throughout the galaxies, throughout the universe, and you're telling me that there's not one that's going to have conquest in mind that we're going to encounter, there's not one that's not going to like us, that's just, to me, that's just illogical and kind of foolish to think.
Yeah.
And to me, it's much more what you're just describing is just like here in our world. There are cultures and countries that are kind of friendly, that are not friendly at all, that are real friendly. There's a spectrum. So it's natural that the microcosm would be a reflection of the macrocosm and vice versa. So
And
I think
we have developed a sort of IFF. If you're a pilot, that is identification friend and foe.
yeah.
And you have actually seen us ward off a foe. You've actually seen the video of it. Do you remember that video where this thing comes in and all of a sudden there's this streak going up and the thing
Yeah.
turns around and leaves?
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a gun that we can shoot across their bow. Warn them. Say,
That was the Don Ecker was talking about that on my show on Friday. That was the shuttle mission STS, was it 48?
I think so. Yeah.
And you see the thing coming in, and it makes that abrupt turn,
It
right?
makes that abrupt turn right after that beam shoots across the bow. Yeah. We're not going to shoot them down. That would start a war. Just fire across the bow. Let them know, hey, you don't come here. Yeah.
That's interesting. And again, folks listening, you've heard me say that I don't think just because, that, yeah, there is a real threat. I don't think that means that there's not nefarious, political players, here on Earth that wouldn't use a threat against us, in a form of tyranny. But just because they would do that doesn't mean that there's not a threat out there. And more, the people like yourself, Lynn, and others who look at certain kinds of data, they are concerned. They do see a threat. And I just hate to see people think that that's all false and a lie, because it's only logical.
You look at the historical pictures of UFOs in the sky, and about, I don't know how many of them show a war going on in the sky between the different.
Good point. Well, the last question, and I don't know if you like to go here or not. It's your choice. But the questioner asked, what do you foresee, if you've looked at this, coming at us, so to speak, in the next 12 months, the next year? Do you ever get into that kind of discussion or not?
As far as the, I forget what he calls it, the revealing of the UFO secrets. I think probably the top 1 to 10% of what we know already will actually be revealed to the public. And then they'll say, and that's it. And the public will go away happy thinking, oh, now we know the secrets.
I see what you're saying.
By the way, do you know that there are no UFOs?
Right. We know what they are, right? We know who they are.
No, they're UAPs. Do you know why the word was changed to UAP?
I've heard different explanations, but let's hear yours.
Sure, you've heard the different explanations, How about, because we can be heroes by revealing the UAPs without having to apologize for lying about UFOs.
Oh, I like that. I like that. That's good. That is good.
That way it distracts the public. It's a subliminal. It distracts the public, and nobody has to apologize for all those lies they've been telling us all along.
There you go. So, real quick, what about other aspects of our world and our lives? Anything you see coming in the next year, be it scientifically, politically, anything like that you would mention?
Going to be some rough times with man-made natural disasters, and going to be some very rough times. And I'm not a prepper, but I will say this: if you want there to be survivors, you better be one.
Interesting.
Because not only myself, but also Stephen Greer was the name I was trying to think of before on the UFOs. Stephen Schwartz and his group, separately, without each other's knowledge, we did the future of the future of the next half century to come, and it's going to be a rough time. Man-made natural disasters, and I will give anything to be wrong about this.
Yeah.
I got that by the end of 2040, around 75% of the human population in the United States and the world will be wiped out. Only about 20% of the population will be left. So prepare.
Let's hope we can avoid that. But when we know that there's weather weaponry and things like directed energy weapons, and like what's going on in Hawaii, and with the weirdness of the fires in California, and there's weirdness, I think a little bit going on here in Montana with fires and other places, you have to keep a wary eye out for what you just said. So, well, hey, I want to thank you again for spending time with me
Thank you
and the
for the
audience here.
invitation.
Seriously, Lynn, and we should catch up. And folks, catching up is me listening to this man and learning all sorts of amazing stuff. But why don't you tell everybody where they can, find you and find your books and connect with you?
Okay, my website is crviewer, CRVIEWER, crviewer.com. I also have formed a new training center that I'm trying to get going, and the trouble I'm having is finding somebody to actually come out and do the work. But it's the Remote View Ranch, and that's remoteviewranch.com. Remote View Ranch all being one word. And yeah, we're teaching online now. I teach on Kajabi, where I used to teach 3 days class on the weekend. You can't learn this in 3 days.
No.
And so now I have been making videos. For the basic course, I have over 160 videos. For the intermediate course, I have over 140 videos. I'm finishing up the advanced course, the medical applications course, police applications course, all these database managers course, and all those. But yeah, we have links to on my website crviewer.com to the Kajabi courses. So
Excellent.
if anyone's interested, yeah.
Well, if you can email me all those, I will make sure that we post them at my page. So for anyone who's interested, they can definitely contact you. And again, Lynn, I thank you so much. And hopefully we can get you on with Joseph Farrell, and we can have one heck of a conversation on trans-temporal cosmic stuff.
Walter, if you're by this way, the welcome mat's right side up. The coffee's hot.
Thank you. I will make a point to be that direction because I really enjoy visiting with you and talking with you, and I always learn so much. So we'll be more in touch here in the near future. And thank you again, Lynn, and have a good evening.
You too. Thank you very much.
Okay, folks, let me tell you that just an incredible show. I really appreciate Lynn coming on and talking about these amazing things. And I'll tell you, he really got my attention on several points and stuff that I know we're going to be talking about with our friend Joseph Farrell. And the part about the thing that's really jumping out at me is his experience in that Russian laser beam. I'm going to be thinking on that one and talking with him about that one again in the future. But anyway, we had a great turnout. I want to thank all of you in the live chat and all of you watching. This is one of our just another great episode, and that's because the guest is fantastic. So. Thanks again, you guys, and I'll be live again next week from here in Montana, and you never know, I might jump on between now and then. We'll see. But thanks again, and I will see you guys next time here at the Walter Bosley channel.